Hi, everyone. It is my absolute joy and pleasure to welcome back Nancy Rebecca, who I know many of you really adored, judging by the comments. I spoke to Nancy, I think about 2 weeks ago, Nancy, about the blue light beings and the surges of light that were coming in, and it just electrified people. And not only have I received, just dozens and dozens of emails, I know you've received hundreds of emails that people have finally been able to come out of the closet about blue light beings, that they've been seeing them for for decades, and have never been able to tell people about them. So that video that we did has given huge validation to those people, but also it seemed that what the blue light has done, and hand over to you in a second, is really create a kind of activation for all of humanity. And I'd love you to talk about that, about what your experience, what other people's experience has been of these three surges of light on the 4th, the 18th, and the 25th of November.
Correct.
And what effect it has had, and how you feel that it may have created this global shift, literally global shift for us in frequency.
Yes. It's so. First of all, again, thank you. Because yes, since 2017, when I had the first visitation, we've become pretty good pals now. However, they still are they're very kind of neutral, and they're very kind of matter of fact. And it's like, when you're busy working, you've got work to do. This is very much like their personality. They will pop in when a little bit of information would be helpful, and they pop out again. So we actually spoke, I think it was on November 1st. So the first surge, was the 4th. And it rapidly just opened up this, I kind of describe it as the boiling pot that's got the lid down. And that our conversation just lifted that lid, and just so much information and energy came out of it. So many people wrote. Now, for me, I was pretty conservative about it and kept it rather small, but they did tell me that there were many people all around the world that they were in contact with, that they have relationships with the star people, with other people, that other people have information, that we're all working together from different aspects. But when that video, when the conversation came out, people described standing in their kitchen and just listening to you in the background. And then when they heard this, they had to stop and put everything down and pull up a chair and say, did I just hear that? And so I've been able to hear from a lot of people. And what's been even more incredible is to get to hear from people all along the three major surges that happened that mirrored each other. They were having similar experiences, almost exact, even though they're in different parts of the world, and even though their perspectives are different from each other. So it's been a wild ride.
It's so beautiful, isn't it? It's very emotional. It's very moving, but it's helped, in validating those experiences for people who've, for various reasons, their family, whatever, they've had to keep it quiet. It has really helped those individuals step into their dharma, into who they are meant to become in this lifetime, into their unique essence more fully. And I think that's beautiful, but that must also inevitably feed back to the collective to raise the frequency.
Yes. And it's as this blue light comes in, the blue light is not attached to any outcome. It's not attached to outcome because it's like this frequency it just knows it's kind of knows what its purpose is. It's an awakening frequency, and they just know that it's going to help awaken each person at whatever level is right for them at that moment. And they just know it's going to happen. So it's not like we do as humans. We have an intuitive sense about something, and so we wonder if it's right or not. They don't. They know that it's right. They know that this is what is going to happen. And it isn't, let me just explain this for just a moment, because I have heard from people who are highly evolved, who have been on this spiritual awakening their whole life, and they've helped so many people, and they totally are 100% in with the experiences we're having. And then there are others who they've never heard of anything like this. So I give it the skateboarder analogy to spiritualism. And that's where some people riding that skateboard will go right down those steep hills and whip around the corners and go around the track, and and crouch down to pick up speed, and they're just overjoyed at that pace. And then there's going to be others on that skateboard that right now they're riding that slope, but they're putting the tennis shoe back to kind of drag, to kind of slow down the pace until they get more comfortable. So, however, there are some people that are highly, highly evolved, but they're the ones with the tennis shoes on the ground so that all of humanity doesn't move so fast. So there's a purpose for all of this. There's a plan, there's a strategy, I suppose.
Yeah. And when you originally had the big vision, Nancy, in 2017, and the blue beings talked about this mass awakening, were they referring to 2023 with regard to that? Do you know?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow, that's
absolutely. So I had originally been told in 2007 that there would be a big awakening, and there was a book that was to be written, and I probably wrote about 5 or 6 chapters. Now, this was in 2007, but it sounded, Pam, so fantastical that I couldn't go there. I just closed what I was writing and I just put it away. But they were saying, Nancy, there's going to be an incredible mass awakening of consciousness on the earth, and we need you to tell people it's coming. And so I didn't. And I imagine there's a lot of listeners out there who've just felt so strongly about something, but they couldn't wrap their mind around it. So they just kind of put it to the side. So that was definitely me. So they were talking about this time. And I remember so they said, the example they gave was someone who's been meditating their whole life, they've been developing their intuition, and then all of a sudden, the teenager, chewing their gum, walking along, has more ability than they have. They said that can happen with this shift, where one day you're one person and the next day you have a level of consciousness where you can spiritually see everything going around. So this is definitely that time. We've had the 3 surges, 2019, 2021, 2023. But I know in those other 2, in 2019 and 2021, were preparing us for what just happened.
I'm so glad I wrote back to you so we could catch these 3 surges in November, because if this was going to be the mass awakening in 2023 and the clock's ticking, we've got about 4 weeks left. I'm so glad we caught that and put it out to a bigger audience. So I'm really delighted. So to what degree do you feel a global shift has already taken place with those big surges? Can you give any gauge or estimate to that? I mean, has everybody been uplifted to some extent? Is that your...
Everyone. So this, I know that sounds, how can I be so certain? So because as a clairvoyant, I'm really interested in the human energy field. So I continue to watch the global field of humanity in between what people were experiencing. And I would like switch my little inner camera to some of the harshest places in the world, and I would still see that light there. Wow. And what's happened is everybody's moved up a few notches or expanded in consciousness a few notches. What I'm seeing right now, no matter where I look in the world, is this bright blue light right in the spiritual chakra. I've never seen that in my 30 years of looking at human energy fields. So what that means is the spark is there, and it will start to be integrated into the body. And for some, they'll just drink it in so easily. And for others, it'll go a little bit slower. But everyone had an uplift.
Okay, you froze for a second there, Nancy, but I think you were just saying everybody's had an upliftment. So,
yes.
So is there anything we can do, Nancy, because I know you're very much a teacher of intuition, is there anything that we each can do to help integrate or even accelerate these energies coming in for us to help our individual spiritual evolution?
Well, if I can talk about it, is it all right if I just talk about it in the three experiences?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, whatever you feel best.
Had. So the very first one, I was not really given a heads up as to what was going to happen. I knew we were all going to be okay, and I knew we were all going to be better than okay. But the first one in November 4th, when they told me there would be 3, I have to say in my very human way, I said, one of those happens to fall on a holiday weekend.
Yeah, we can't do that. Yeah, we'll have to change the date. Yeah.
And so I laugh at the things that I think about sometimes in these conversations. But they said we had to have 2 weeks in between the first one and the second one. It had to be 2 weeks that people would need time to integrate. So when the blue light did come through, and I was watching this surge come down, and it was almost like, I don't know, like a big piece of earth moving equipment. It was just kind of boom, 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 and just slowly made its way through that first mesa. And it was almost like watching a cork pop out of a bottle. And once that happened, the surge went all the way into the earth. And there were just this highly activated blue light waves that were going through. Well, then suddenly it was like I observed a collapse, like everything collapsed. And I didn't even have time, Pam, to think about it. It was like, did I just watch karma collapse? I think I just witnessed this, but how is that possible? So see, right away, my mind wants to try to understand it. So I just had to let it go. And they explained to me just about a week ago, it's like if you're in an earthquake, so the earthquake moves you, you're moved. You're unstabilized a little bit. All the bookshelves in your house fall over and the books fall on the floor. And they said the tendency is to want to pick up the bookshelves and put all the books. So imagine each book is a karmic lesson. And they said, no, right now what you need to do is just let go of all the books and let go of all the bookshelves, because all the answers are inside of you.
Yeah.
And so that very much was that first one, but we had to wait 2 weeks because their bodies hurt, bones ached, sore muscles, trouble sleeping. I mean, headaches. There were a lot of what I would call those ascension patterns were pretty harsh for some people. And yet there were other people, it was like, well, that was as joy-filled can be. So everybody integrates differently. Then the second one that happened on the 18th was a water theme. So the first one was an earth theme, and that collapse happened in 8 minutes. I mean, you would think, okay, this is my head again. If we've been collecting karma for, I don't know, thousands of years, you would think it would take thousands of years to kind of integrate into itself, but it didn't. Literally a house of cards just dropped. Wow. So we're still in that phase, and we will be in that phase of integrating that change for the next 3 years. So that's gonna be big. The second one it was water, a water theme, but they called it's water but not water. That's how they communicate. And then you've got to follow the breadcrumbs. Okay, water, no water. All right, it's water, no water. Can you explain that? And then they said, well, it's more of a plasma light. But they said in your world, it feels wet. But in the cosmic world, it's like plasma light. So I didn't quite understand that, and I don't totally understand that now.
Yep.
But that was the most colorful. That was the one where people had the most visions of whales, of dolphins, mermaids, octopus, but dragons. That's what surprised me the most. I didn't say the first one, there was a lot of dragons. People had dragon experiences in the second one, and people had dragon experiences in the third one.
Yeah, this is really fascinating because you probably know next year is the year of the dragon, the wood dragon. So dragon.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, in Chinese astrology. But the dragon energy is coming in very strongly because there's a dwarf planet it's spelt Gong Gong, but it's actually pronounced Gong Kun. It has a 551-year orbit. And right now it is sitting right next to Saturn in Pisces. And so this, it's a Chinese god, very linked to dragon energy as well, very linked to water, flooding, management flooding, which is very, very interesting. And so dragon energy is going to be coming up very, very strongly. And just to refer back to what you were saying about people sort of integrating this at different levels and different speeds. Going back to a few months ago in March, several people in my local neighborhood who are very gifted psychics, but also people like Jim Self and Jeffrey Hoppe, mentioned that March 22nd was what they called Heaven's Cross. And this is where a second layer of light became available to us. So, we can one by one, depending on our level of consciousness, step up into this higher level of light, this finer state of being, this more of the light body. Saturn had moved into Pisces on, I believe, dead on the day, 22nd of March. Saturn will be exiting Pisces in February 2026. So this 3-year period of Saturn in Pisces, which is about almost spiritual mastery, spiritual discipleship, dissolving the density of bodies and linear time and old traditional structures. That 3-year period I see as being very, very crucial for many of us to kind of pop through to this higher state of being. And it's up to each individual working on their frequency as to quickly, and their soul contract, etc. No judgment here, how quickly they do that. But certainly that 3-year period becomes very important. And in 2026, we have major, major astrological indicators of use hearts.
Wow.
Big whole new, it's almost like, going through 2025, to some it may feel like the end of the world, but it's the end of a world. Yeah. It's the end of a world to fully birth the next world, but it's already happening. I mean, all your work, all my work is saying it's already here, and we're already here. It. So, yes. We're just strengthening it as the time goes on.
Yes, yes. Well, and I'm really curious about the dragon experience that many people are having as well in relationship to some of these things. But the change, when you're talking about the world changes, because my main interest is in the human energy field, so I'm really watching observing from a clairvoyant perspective, how are these changes impacting us? And that massive, as you said, some people may feel like it's the end of the world, but what's happening, it's that your inner world that's been relying on the opinions of others, your inner world that's been relying on what you've been told in the, banking system or the religious system or the corporate system or the academic system, that's what's shifting. And it's almost, if I can say, for some, it would be like being weaned from a bottle or having to, help your child stop sucking their thumb or something. It's like, it's so comfortable and we want to stay in that comfort, but that is shifting. And you realize once you stop sucking your thumb, you've got so much more freedom. You've got both hands to work with. So that's what's happening, to where we are becoming knowledge is what the blue light beings are saying. We are becoming knowledge, which means everyone will have all the information they need inside of them, and they won't need to depend or rely on that external information being fed externally. So yeah, it might be a little rough, but the benefits are enormous.
This is because you're speaking astrologically, Nancy. I don't think you.
Oh no!
Aware of it. So it's
wonderful.
It's just music to my ears, because just as I've been saying, Saturn in Pisces is about dissolution of the old systems, the old structures, but also Pluto, which has a 248-year cycle, is moving through the last couple of degrees of Capricorn. And Capricorn is to do with top-down structures, governments, institutions, it's verticality, it's elitism, it's inequality, rich people at the top telling the poor people at the bottom what to do. That is really breaking down big time, because Pluto will only spend 3 months in Capricorn next year, and it will have done its job, as it were, to allow those old systems to collapse, and will then move into Aquarius for a 21-year transit. So that will see many of us out, a 21-year transit. But Aquarius is about knowledge. It's about higher mind.
Okay.
It's about higher mind. So that is saying that, in your analogy of all the books falling off the bookshelf, we won't need the external books, because we will just tune in and get everything we need. We'll just be so connected. We won't need any external references. Everything will be living, as I so often talk about, from the inside out, not the outside.
Yes.
So it's beautiful what you're saying, because it's just pure astrology is music. So it's really, really exciting. So do you feel that there's more to come with the blue light as we move into 2024?
Well, so I will talk about, but let me just talk about the third one, because I didn't mention.
Sorry, I interrupted. Sorry.
No. I know we get all excited, and because I think about my sun sign. My sun sign definitely is in Aquarius, and I think my rising is Capricorn. So I've got both of those on the inside of me, so I can appreciate both. But this third one that happened on November 25th was the galactic one. It was the cosmic one.
Yeah.
And in this, that's where the information came. You're becoming knowledge. And the great attractor was a huge part of the surge, and the galactic center was enormous. And I have to tell you, there was a group I was working with, kind of guiding them through this. When they were in the great attractor at that human consciousness level, they could remain there for about 11 minutes. Now, I know that does not sound very long, but in cosmic years, it's a long time. Then they were guided to move to focus and become the galactic center. And it seemed like they were there for 30 minutes, but I was watching the clock and they were there for 2 minutes. So that enormous shift in that space-time continuum just happened most recently. And it's like in the body clock just stopped. Everything just stopped, and then it started up again. But it was the galactic center that they call the place of nothing that's filled with everything.
Oh, beautiful.
Place of nothing that's filled with everything. And they taught that everything is knowledge.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. I don't know if I said this, Nancy, when we had our conversation at the beginning of the month, but on the 18th, when the second wave came, it's the 18th of November, Mercury was conjunct the Great Attractor. And Mercury is Hermes, it's the messenger, it's the planet of communication, it's the kind of interconnector, if you like. It's also to do with the mind, very much linked to the mind. So that was conjunct the Great Attractor, which is at 14 degrees of Sagittarius, exactly on the 18th. So the Great Attractor, for those who don't know, is this massive gravitational anomaly in space. It's like a massive cosmic vacuum cleaner. It moves backwards at 600 kilometers a second, and it sucks thousands of galaxies in its wake. It is just raw power. It's raw creator power, if you like. Then on the 25th, Mercury was exactly at the galactic center, which is 27 of Sagittarius.
Oh, I have goosebumps.
Yeah. So you've got this repeat: Mercury at the galactic on the Great Attractor, conjunct it on the 18th. Mercury conjunct the galactic center on the 25th, and that's at 2027 of Sagittarius. And the galactic center, spookily enough, is the center of our galaxy, which pours out raw plasma, and it's the plasma.
Oh my.
With crystalline plasma that is God consciousness, divine intelligence, divine consciousness, with which we are interacting in every moment, a little human individual, to create our world and our reality.
Yes.
And Mercury is the interconnector, the messenger.
Wow. I just, like, I have to take a moment with that because I really have not known anything about the Great Attractor or what I call the Galactic Core, Galactic Center. They've only been talking to me about it for like the last 3 months. So this is very new to me. And that's why they were saying we are becoming knowledge. So what does that even mean? That's where I'm going. My mind is just like, because I'm going to have to sit with that for a little bit and meditate on it. And I would invite everybody to just kind of meditate with that galactic core. But I wanted to mention the Great Attractor when you were talking about that gravitational pull and the massive power. What I witnessed happen, it was the blue star people have been telling me, we're not going through a transformation. I'm like, okay. And they said, we're going through a metamorphic shift. So they were explaining to me a transformation, can be, you just decide to become freer and let your hair grow, and you want to, change how you wear your clothes, or how you interact, or you speak up for yourself. Those are transformational moments. But they said a metamorphic shift that we're going through is like the larvae in the cocoon that must completely liquefy before coming back together again in the form of a butterfly. So, Pam, what they showed me was with the Great Attractor, what's happening for us here on Earth, it's almost like our cellular structures kind of expanding and then reforming and reshaping. So how that's going to translate in the human form, that's what really excites me, because I want to know, what have people noticed? But it's still too soon. We just finished, but I can't wait.
But what you're talking about, Nancy, therefore, is a complete change of state.
Yes.
Caterpillar to the bottom. It isn't just a gradual transformation. It's a complete change of state. And this is what I'm really seeing as the new human, which is actually remembrance of many of the skills and abilities we had in ancient times. The telepathy, the healing, the interconnectedness with all beings, the light body. And apparently, because the Earth is moving through this area of space called the photon belt, the very high frequency photonic light is activating our DNA to bring back online more of the strands that have been dormant for so many thousands of years. So it's a remembrance, but it's also a real revolution to enable us, in a very short period of time, to become the new human.
With very short period of time.
Yeah.
And everyone made movement. Everyone on the earth made movement. There was an expansion. Now, for some, that spreading the butterfly wings, it's like, how far and wide can I spread them, and how much can you look at this beauty? There's definitely going to be people who are already ready for that. And then there's going to be those others who are still in that phase of wrapped tight with the wings, but they're not even to the point of letting the wings start to dry and start to expand to show their true colors. But everyone on the earth has gone through this. And I've been watching the lowest of the low and the highest of the high. And it's all divine purpose. Where everybody is, there's that divine purpose. And I'm excited because suddenly people are feeling free to talk about this.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. Well, you've given them a forum, a hub, a community within which to do that. But, what you're really saying, Nancy, we've lived in such a contracted state as humans through fear and anxiety and worry about paying the bills and, nightly news and what's gone wrong today. It's been so contracted. But what you're really saying is open and allow. Develop this sense of spaciousness and expansion. Because where we're going next year is a completely different energy, and it's much more about expansion and spaciousness. So it's just keep that, if you can't think of anything better, keep that rolling mantra. I'm welcoming in an expanded consciousness of love. I'm welcoming in an expanded consciousness of love. I am ready to receive my highest timeline. It's those kind of mantras that have a feeling of allowing, surrender, expansion, and don't hold too tight, as we've done through all of our lives, to kind of hold the ship together in our day-to-day life. And so, it's sort of astrological joke. I bet it was the Leos that expanded their wings first. I'm going to go for it. But anyway, I shouldn't make up.
And I will say, because I've given a talk about the Sirians, Orions, Pleiadians, and most recently last week, the Lyrans. And, people will ask if I'm going to talk about other star beings, people from other constellations. But I only was talking to the one that I see the most right now. And that people have asked about Arcturians and things, and I don't have that sense about them. But the Lyrans definitely, they're the ancient keepers of the most ancient knowledge. And so I'm not surprised that they're coming in to help uplift and support and bring through the confidence for us, to help us expand into our confidence that we do have the answers inside of us and that we can trust it.
Yeah. Absolutely beautiful. And I also listened, Nancy, to your video about the Hopi prophecy and the blue light that was involved in that. And in the Hopi prophecy, they were saying that this is the time of choice right now. And I've been saying all year long, it's been a year-long transit, that Pluto square the nodal axis was a huge time of choice. It's just beginning to ease off now, and it won't apply in 2024. It'll have moved on. But it was a choice between, are you a victim or are you a co-creator? Are you living in fear or are you living in love? So it was so interesting that the Hopi prophecy was saying this is a time of choice between materialism or following the spiritual path. And they're also saying, as I understand it from your video, that after that, things are going to happen very fast, that we're going to reach other cosmic beings. And next year is going to go lickety split. The energy is totally different. It's so quick. So,
and we don't have to worry about it. So this is going to be my nurse side that comes out, Pam, because one of the things that I asked the blue light people, if I could deliver one message, just one, to everybody in the whole world that you wish for me to say on behalf of you, what would that be? And they said, please don't be afraid of us.
Oh,
Don't be afraid of your own light. Don't be afraid of what's around the corner. You know, it was like this mass shift is assisting people to let go of the fear. And they were just, because I wasn't hearing from a lot of people about fear, I was hearing from a lot of people that were excited. And they said, there's many more people in fear still. But, I've lost my train of thought about that.
don't worry.
The Hopi. So the Hopi. Okay. So now my nurse hat. So I will say that I am not Hopi. So I cannot speak as an expert from that perspective. I'm drawing from the perspective of the knowledge that's out there, however good, bad, or indifferent it is, whether I think Greg Braden's made an incredible talk about that, but there's a lot of also Hopi elders who've talked about it in books. All right, now that I've said that, there is this wall of petroglyphs, and it does show one path going more towards spiritualism and one path remaining at materialism. And so from that perspective, it looks like some are going to ascend and others are going to remain here. So let me pull from the book of Nancy for just a minute, because I followed that timeline because I want to know about all of humanity. And there's some horrible things happening. There are horrible things happening. But what they showed was that other timeline, let's say that it might take them 100 years before they fully have understand the full aspect of their spirit, of a spiritual perspective, where the others are already there and can quickly help Mother Earth and all of her beauty and nature and people. They can continue to help at that level, and they will continue to help those who are still caught and stuck in materialism, help them to awaken. So we will still be in that awakening process. Everybody's going to get there. It's just going to take it's just different for different people.
And also just to know that there are people already there. There are people already who've shifted into that frequency. And I see it as a sort of a relay race of bridges where those people who've moved over one bridge are still reaching back to help people over that bridge. I'm going quite goosebumpy now. And then there's another bridge, and there are more people who've gone over the bridge number 2 who are reaching back to help people over bridge number 2. And it's the whole kind of relay race that they're going to.
And there are people who had to build the bridge.
Yes. Because brilliant. Because as I understand it, it is only because we as humanity have raised our consciousness that we've created this higher timeline to allow this blue light to come in.
That's
my understanding.
Yes. I had a dream once, and in the dream, there were hundreds of people standing on this sandy beach, and their feet were kind of sunk in the sand. And I was walking up this path. I saw this wall of water coming like a tsunami. And I start yelling at the people, and they were just like standing there like robotic, like not conscious at all. And I'm screaming, and I'm running down and I'm trying to pull at them and running and running. This dream really bothered me for a long time. Like, why aren't they moving? Why aren't they running for their life? And what Spirit told me is, Nancy, if you keep running and trying to pull them out of the sand to save them, your job is to move ahead on the pathway, climb to the top of the mountain and yell, it's beautiful up here, it's safe up here, come on, run the path. So that message, how many of us do that? We want to stay stuck or implanted with everybody else around us because we want them to be safe. And yet for them to be safe, we have to follow we have to do our path, what we are called to do to show the way, like across the bridge.
Yeah. And we don't shine our light fully by staying small.
No.
We infect other people with our light, with our greater light, if we have the courage to move forwards. And it's that kind of infecting with light. And I've always known, I've said this over the last few years, it's going to be about the light, it's going to be about the frequency, and somehow water is involved in that too. Light, frequency, and water are the kind of three ingredients that are really going to propel us forwards. And, you know, so much of what you were talking about is obviously the light. But therefore the frequency. So it feels immensely exciting, because it feels like we've, particularly if a lot of karma has dissolved in your vision of that first wave on 4th of November, which is so exciting. Maybe that's why I'm seeing in the astrology this speed that can come in, because the outer planets are gradually starting to move from Earth and water, which are slow, dense, heavy, into air and fire, which are really fast. And even from January, that's happening with Pluto re-entering Aquarius. And we have the North Node in Aries, which is about our sovereignty, our sense of inner power, our sense of I am. You know, I've got a very clear sense of who I am on this path. Not in an assertive way, just in a very clear way of I know what my individual unique essence is to add to the whole. But the speed coming in with every part of the astrology.
It is. Really. Yeah. And I'm excited. We've had those moments of being in Aquarius, and I felt so free, as if I could take a deep breath and it would expand, you know, hundreds of miles out. And then when Capricorn came back in, it was just like, oh, my breath is limited again. So that I can really feel that and experience that. And the speed. So I just kind of want to go back to where are we going next? And I was shown a vision on the 25th. So the last surge, I was meditating in the morning, and the vision I was shown were these enormous boulders, and I'm behind a boulder, and I peek out and I'm looking at the path ahead, and it's like the sun is sitting on the earth. And I was like, whoa, that's bright. And then I looked in back of me, and hundreds of thousands of people were walking towards this light. Now, being the nurse that I am, I'm looking and I'm asking questions like, isn't that light too bright? Is it too bright for everyone? And they were like, no, walk into the light. So I just stepped on the path and I joined the hundreds of thousands. And we walked into this pure light. And that's when I heard the voice say, you are becoming pure knowledge, that light is that knowledge. And the light is our soul. It's our spirit, if we want to think about it that way. We are that spark of the divine, but we are flooding and becoming light bodies. It's flooding that inner core. So that was the vision that I was shown. Now, I was told when I was in Ireland, laying on the ground, and then the real work begins. I am told a little bit about another frequency shift. I don't know when it's coming. I could ask, and yet they've encouraged me to rest, because we in November, we went through so many downloads, so many photonic downloads, that they just said, just rest now. You've got lots of time. Everyone has lots of time.
It's wonderful to hear. I think there's something that could be very big. And again, I'm thinking astrologically around April. Not only do we have a total solar eclipse on the 8th, but on the 20th, 21st, we have a very important conjunction between Jupiter and Uranus. And Uranus rules Aquarius. It's the planet of the galactics. It's the planet of freedom, truth, awakening, the planet of the greater cosmos, if you like. And it's very related to higher consciousness. And Jupiter is also, they've got real similarities, Jupiter and Uranus. They're very future-oriented. They're both really connected to higher consciousness. Jupiter expands the energy of Uranus. So I think this is going to be a major, although that conjunction happens every 13 to 14 years, it hasn't happened in Taurus since 1941. So that's quite rare. But this is going to open us up to the cosmos as a remembrance, because I've been saying this in videos, don't think that we are 100% human and they are all,
Right. Exactly.
We are all galactic beings. And if we look back to one of the previous times, because Pluto's got a 248-year orbit, as I mentioned, so it's quite rare it moves into Aquarius. And one of the last times it was in Aquarius was in 1543, when Copernicus develops his heliocentric theory of the Earth goes around the sun and not the other way around. And for the average bloke on the street in 1543, that was just paradigm shattering. So I am fully open to have my astrological paradigm shattered.
I can tell. That's why I'm laughing, because I'm like, I don't think I understood a word you just said, but you're so excited. I'm going there with you.
That's quite funny. So yeah,
and this is going to happen, and it's like I'm excited, but I don't know what all that means. But I bet you're going to be talking a lot about it between now and
10 times, and every astrologer is going to be talking about that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. But to me, we are going to have our paradigm shattered. And as I said, I'm completely open to everything I've known about astrology for decades to be, just kicked into a cocked hat or whatever, because I think our whole understanding of the galaxy, the cosmos, the greater galaxies, we are going to understand so much and so many astrological indicators. Pluto moving into Aquarius, Uranus moving into Gemini 2025, 26, Jupiter moving into Gemini in May next year. That's going to really ratchet up the speed as well. So many indicators of we are really stepping back into our galactic citizenry in a way we have never done in thousands of years. We've forgotten it. And so all of our tiny little kind of battles over the backyard fence are going to seem just ridiculous in that much more vast perspective of where we're headed. It's just vast, it's infinite. It's like, because everything in the universe is fractal, including us, we're fractals of God or fractals of the cosmos. Because everything is fractal, it's infinite. It's like Russian dolls. Yes. And I've never said this publicly, actually, and I don't know if I dare to say it, but I know that, I don't know if I dare to say this, but in a past life, I am very clear, because so many people have told me about it. And also I've had some very clear recollections that I was actually an apprentice to, I'm going so goosebumpy now, to Dr. John Dee, who was an alchemist, an astrologer, an astronomer, particularly in his, he went off piste a little later in life, but he had very high intentions, and I was his apprentice. He took me on as a ward of court, and my name then was Thomas Digges, Digges, and I was a very accomplished astronomer rather than astrologer. And in those days you didn't even have a calculator, but I was the first person as Thomas Digges that wrote a paper proposing that the universe was infinite.
Wow.
And it was like Russian dolls. It was fractal. I've never said that publicly, so heaven knows what the comments are going to be, but I have a very clear sense of that.
Yeah. Well, the thing about past lives, so, I always talk, with my students, but it was like, there used to be a time where past lives were debatable. And a lot of people may debate that. However, they have proven it. There are many university studies, they've done so many interviews that they have proven it beyond a doubt and being very factual. But in going, and so then that means that you brought all that knowledge with you into this lifetime to assist all of us here to understand what's happening, and that being that infinite expansion. So, and that you have that knowledge, and I'm sure you don't know where it always comes from. It's like, where did that just come from?
Mm-hmm.
And you're drawing upon that life.
Yeah, absolutely. And just if I can very briefly say this as a personal story, and I rarely tell them, but about 20 years ago, I met someone who told me that my main spirit guide was Dr. John Dean. She said, I've got no idea who this is, but I can, see him very clearly. And he wanted to give you a gift in that lifetime, which he, for whatever reason, there wasn't the opportunity. So he wants to give you that gift now. And it's an astrolabe. She said, I've got absolutely no idea what that is. And I said, well, I absolutely know what an astrolabe is. It's like a geared sextant or planetarium that the medieval people used to determine the positions of the... Anyway, I don't know how I drove home. I teleported home, and I switched on my computer and the word astrolabe appeared across the screen. I switched on my iPad and the word astrolabe appeared across the screen. I hadn't thought of astrolabes for donkey's years, and I was going out with a chap at the time, and I called him and I said, you won't believe the afternoon I've had. And I told him the story, and he said, what time were you with this lady, Juliana? And I said, about 3 o'clock. And he said, at that very moment, I was in London trying to buy you an astrolabe for Christmas.
Oh, wow.
So there was sort of lots of validation of, anyway, that's a tangent, but,
how has that influenced your life?
Oh, it's been profound. I think it's given me such a sense of again, validation, crystallization, that, this isn't the first time I've done this kind of work. And it's, anyway, but that was a personal tangent. So back to you, Nancy, and what do you see? Is there anything? I know that the blue light beings have said that you must rest now and integrate. We all must rest and integrate, because there's been a bit of a whitewater rafting time, and the speed is going to pick up again as soon as we hit virtually January the 1st, January the 2nd, because Jupiter goes direct on the 30th of December. Mercury goes direct on the 1st. That means every planet will be direct apart from Uranus. Uranus moves direct on the 27th of January. Every planet will be direct moving forwards until June, when Pluto starts to move retrograde. So, that's quite an unusual phase. And because Pluto is moving into Aquarius, and that's such a rare happening astrologically, we are just going to be, we've got to be on the starting blocks. It's go time.
Yes. And I'm so excited, because for 30 years, even when I had my out-of-body experience and I became sighted, and I really thought that, either I was going to be locked up in a mental hospital, or I should drive myself, because I was trained, in medical school, that's what happens. That's not humanly normal. But even then, my son, who was 15 years old, who said, Mom, when I'm in my 30s, there's going to be a revolution. And I said, oh, really? And he's 43 now. And I said, oh, okay. And I have to sit there quietly. For people who have teenagers, if you ask too much, you're too interested, they stop talking. So I said, oh, lovely. And he said, but it's not going to be a revolution that we've read about in history books. I said, okay. And he goes, it's going to be a revolution about love. And he got this information. He was 15, so he was 43 now. And so I'm super excited. That the point I'm trying to make is we all have been waiting for this time for a long, long time. And even if you didn't know you were waiting for this time, you were waiting for this time. I just can't be.
Nancy, that is so beautiful. And it reminds me, actually, the brilliant cosmologist, Dr. Jude Currivan, regularly talks about we are entering a revolution of love.
Oh, wow.
So
I asked him probably, 3 months ago, do you remember that dream? And he said, like it was yesterday. He said it is just so vivid and so strong, and it has never left him. Never left him. Yeah.
Wow. It is immensely exciting. If we can just put our focus with consistency, I've been saying this a lot recently, with consistency on love, on joy, on peace and compassion, on opening our hearts, on a sense of spaciousness and expansion, we are going to get there really quickly and bring the collective with us, because we're going to infect them with all of that. And that's one of the most helpful things we can do for everybody, particularly people who are living in hideous circumstances right now, but we've got to do it with consistency. And yes, okay, we all have off days and wobble, but when we wobble, and I said this in my last video, when we wobble, we kind of just take a little step back in the stability of the architecture of light that we're building for New Earth. So consistency, focus, create, love, spaciousness, expansion, care for all beings, all of those things that you and I both talk about will get more people to that place of New Earth and love fast.
And if I can add neutrality, that a place of being neutral, of just, I'm okay, you're okay, we're all okay. And that to let go of that judgment and that criticism and, how we project, onto other people or project onto ourselves, which is huge. We want everyone to live up to a standard that we can't live up to ourselves. And so there's a lot of turmoil. So being neutral. And after the second surge, I had a nanosecond of feeling I was guided to connect with the heartbeat of Mother Earth. And anybody can do this, that you just imagine that you've got this root system and you're going to connect with all the roots, whether they're trees or other type of roots, water, streams. And you connect with that and you just imagine and pretend and imagine that you can, that Mother Earth has a heart and that you can sense that heart and then you match your heart with Mother Earth's heart. All right. So they had me do that and that was incredible. And they said, now connect with the heartbeat of the galactic. And so they had me experience that. And that the galactic love was like, whoa, don't go away, come back. Like, please last forever. I'm telling you, please last forever. Like it was a fleeting moment. So when you're talking about how rapidly things are shifting, and you were talking about that fluttering and that movement, and sometimes you might feel overwhelmed. You want to step back. And for some of us, we might think, oh my gosh, life can't go faster than it is already. I'll never make it. It's not that kind of fast. It's a shifting to center where it's like, like when you go over a hill and it's like, ooh, that tickled my tummy. It's kind of like, it's going to be like that. Yes, some things that need to break and fall apart are going to break and fall apart. And it's going to feel better afterwards. Yes, you might have those moments, but it's faster, it's lighter, it's like fine sand that can fill in the cracks much easier than thick mud or clay. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, because the still point is the point of power. That's where we create from. Not only does it calm our nervous system, but that's the point from which we create everything. Because otherwise, if we're living in the past, rushing forward to the future, we're giving away our power. We're leaking power.
Yes.
Dropping into the breath, which I talk about a lot, dropping into the still point, being in awe in nature, wow, look at those colors. It's just beautiful. The sunlight coming through the trees, just wow, be in that moment.
Yes.
Wonder and awe and that still point, or close your eyes and drop into the breath and the things that Nancy and I have talked about, because that's where you find your anchor, your center, and you stop, the kind of the merry-go-round of, because it's the 3D that's going to be collapsing that is the merry-go-round. But if you're living from the inside out, not the outside in, you won't have that sense of chaos. You'll be aware of things breaking down, but you'll be holding the anchor in the center.
Exactly. And it isn't like, right now, it's hard work. It is hard work living as a human. It's hard work for Mother Nature dealing with us. It's just hard work all the way around. I'm not talking about that kind of hard work. What they keep explaining to me, it's going to be so natural. It's like wisdom will come out of your mouth to a friend and you go, whoa, I've never talked like that in my life. Where'd that come from? So there is going to be a sense of ease and effortlessness where you get kind of giddy and excited because you're like, wow, I just had an intuitive moment. And that's the other thing, that our intuition, after that second one, the sixth chakra, the clairvoyant chakra, the visions, you were talking about nature, you walk out and you're like, whoa, look at the color. Like even on gray days, which we have a lot here where I live, it's just like, it's palpable, the color that seems to come out of the gray. So I have a lot of hope, and I am optimistic by nature, but even this is a high level of optimism and hope that I've not experienced before.
Wow. Well, Nancy, you are definitely one of our forerunners, our leaders in the light. And I'm sure you have so much more to bring through to translate for us, to help us over the bridges, to help us as we go. And we really are on the ride of our lives, I think, for which there's no rehearsal, but it's very exciting. And is there anything else? We're right up to the hour now, Nancy. Is there anything else you'd like to share with people before we close?
I do. The Blue Star people, they said to me, it was probably about a week ago, because I asked them if I could share anything, and they said about the fear, like, don't be afraid of us. And I said, is there anything that you would like to know, is what I asked them. And they said, yeah, we're really curious why people don't believe we exist, and why humans don't believe that there's other galaxies and constellations of planets and stars that we live on. And he said, because they seem to fight it so much, and yet when they have the experience, it feels so much like home to them. Mm-hmm. So how can a place that feels like home not be real? And I was like, wow, that's a good question. That's a good question. And I don't know that I can, answer that for them right now. But I thought that was quite beautiful. When it feels so much like home, how can we not be real?
Yeah, that is very, very beautiful. And I said in my last video, are they our higher selves? Are they our future selves?
Right.
Are they even our past selves? They're just different aspects of us, because we are multidimensional beings, and we've had no sense of it broadly up to now. But we're discovering, we're sensing it, and they are highlighting that multidimensionality for us.
Yes. Yeah. And I always say, in the river of life, I love to look up and just see how many people are floating in that river and that current with me. And you are one of them, and you are just a jewel. And thank you so much.
Oh, bless you, Nancy. I have loved this. We didn't rehearse it. I never know where these conversations are going to go. And we've kind of hung on over the jumps, haven't we? That's so exciting. I've loved this conversation. I'm sure we're going to have more in future. And just thank you a millionfold for the work you're doing in the world. It's so special. It's fine. It's so unique, and it is profoundly reassuring. Also, with your nurse's background for people, and how we navigate these coming times that are so exciting for us. So God bless you, Nancy. It's been
thank you so much.
And I hope everyone enjoys this conversation as much as Nancy and I have. So sending love to everyone. Thank you so much for listening. God bless to you all.
Bye-bye.
Now.